Hello everyone, welcome back to another lecture on Methodology and Perspective of Humanities. Today we are going to discuss philology. You might probably get question like what is philology or what are the different types of philology. Usually it won't be asked as an essay question, but for 4 marks there's a chance to ask questions from this portion. So philology, it simply means the study of language. Then you might be wondering, study of language? Then what about linguistics? You have already studied the study of language is known as linguistics, not philology. This is a new term. But this term philology were in use earlier. So philology simply it means study of language, but it was an earlier term. Now we use the technical term linguistics for the study of language. See, being the students of literature, we have to go beyond that simple layman definition. Philology, for a common man, it is the study of language. But being a literature student, we have to go beyond that. We have to go deep into that term. There are several meanings for this term philology, and its origin is from a Greek term known as philo and logos, which means love of word, speech, or reason. So, philology, the term comes from a Greek term known as philo and logos. Its meaning is love of word, speech, or reason. And in the medieval ages, the term used to mean the love of literature or literary erudition. So, the love of literature, that is what is the meaning of the term philology in the medieval ages. We know that when we were learning the history of English literature, we have seen there is an ancient age, ancient period, or all English period. There comes later it comes medieval ages, then modern ages, etc. So, with the passage of time, the meaning has also changed. M.H. Abraham, this name is familiar to all the literature students. He is the one who compiled a textbook which consists of lot of literary terms. M.H. Abraham's Glossary of English Literature. Haven't you gone through that textbook? As a literature student, this is one of the basic textbook that you should possess. So he defined philology as an older term for the scientific study of the constitution and history of languages philology, a term that all sometimes used as synonymous with linguistics. So this term philology is synonymous with linguistics, and it is the study of the history of language, the constitution, how a particular language has constituted, and what is the history. So this is the same thing that we are learning in linguistics. So we can say that both philology and linguistics both are synonymous with each other. And we know that when we are studying a language, it can be studied in two ways: diachronic and synchronic study. Sometimes, when we are following either of the studies, we have to do a comparative study too. What is comparative? Comparative in the sense comparing something, comparing two or more things. Suppose if you are studying the history of English literature or English language, you have to compare this language with other languages like Greek, Roman, French, Danish, etc. Because when we were going through the history of English language, we have came to know that there were a lot of conquerors in the land of Britain. The language English, which is used now, consists of so many loan words. So sometimes it is quite mandatory to compare more than one languages to study on a particular language. So that type of comparison and study is precisely known as the comparative philology. Here, comparative philology is defined like this. The study of the relationship between the languages is known as comparative philology. What is the relationship between these two languages? When we are studying English language, sometimes we can see the traces of Indian languages too, even Sanskrit, because Britishers, they have settled their colonies across the world, isn't it? So, just go through this paragraph on comparative philology. I'm not reading it line by line. So, in precise, the comparative philology, it is the study of relationship between languages. All the languages are interrelated. The next one is textual philology. Textual, what is text? In the last session, we discussed the difference between work and text. What is text? Text is the letters or the contents in a textbook. See, philology also includes the study of text and their history by making use of the text-based approach to criticism. When you are studying English language, you have to begin from where the language has developed. We have to begin from the language of the Celts. But at that time, there existed only oral communication. There were no written language. And later on, many changes had happened in the society in England. Many conquerors came, the rules have changed, the original inhabitants were thrown out from the land of England. It was under the control of Romans for a time, for Danes, then comes the Normans. So, with the arrival of these conquerors, the language has developed. At the same time, the written form has also developed. Usually, when we were talking about all English period, we will discuss what about the literature of that time? What about the English, the manuscripts, Beowulf, and other the Exeter books? So, those Kidman, Kinewolf, these were the authors of that time. So, we know that the language and literature both are interrelated. We have already discussed the point earlier. Both are interconnected. If you want to learn the history of a language, you have to go through the literature of that time period. So you have to suppose if you are having a study on English language, you have to refer the textbooks, the all English textbooks also. Here it is mentioned that like that. The author's original text should be maintained and to seek the help of available manuscripts and historical data. All the available manuscripts and historical data should be studied. In any age, the period of intense literary activity flourishes but then slowly dwindles and is followed. For example, when you are going through the plays of William Shakespeare, some of the characters in his plays reflects the living people of that time. You know that King Lear, it is one of the famous plays written by William Shakespeare. Actually, that play is uh, based on the crisis period, because we know that after the demise of Queen Elizabeth, there was a question: who will reign the throne later? So, based on that situation, he has written King Lear. Then he has written some of the historical plays too. That is Julius Caesar. It is based on a real incident. It is based on Roman history. Though William Shakespeare, he is an English man. He has written Julius Caesar based on Roman history. So, this type of interconnectedness that we can see in literary works of a particular language. And with the passage of time, these texts were rewritten. The original manuscripts of King Lear is not the same as we are reading now. Now, all the works of all the earlier writers are available to us in the modern language, modern English language. But it was not as the same as they have written it. And similarly, in the case of Bible, the Christian followers, they do study and read Bible. But the Bible which is in use now is not exactly the same Bible written ages ago. So these texts were the original manuscripts were rewritten. So when we are studying on that literature or language, now we are referring this rewritten textbook. So this is textual philology. When you are studying on a particular language, you are examining the books which are written in that language from earlier days. You are one of the primary resources is the textbooks. So this is textual philology. But in new philology, the textual philology and new philology both depend on textbook, but in new philology they study on the actual text without any amendments. They do refer the original text. Suppose a new philologist is studying on English language, he will refer the original manuscript of Beowulf, the one which is in all English language. But a textual philologist will refer the rewritten form of Beowulf. That is a difference. That is a difference between new philology and textual philology. Then comes cognitive philology, the study of text as consequences of intellectual process of man, is known as cognitive philology. It includes all types of text, both written and oral. Cognitive philology compares the result of textual study and experimental study. The text as consequences of intellectual process of man. William Shakespeare has written around 37 plays. And with the passage of time, many critics or authors, they have studied the plays and noted down their opinions. They have published books on William Shakespeare and his plays. Uh, as I said earlier, uh, in 14th century, there was not a concept of colonialism. But after 19th and 20th century, many critics they came forward and they reread the Shakespearean plays, and they started to find out the colonial aspects in his works. So this is what the interpretation goes on. The cognitive philology will study the textbooks published on the original text. So that textbooks, it is the result of the intellectual process of man. Suppose if I'm writing a critical analysis of Wordsworth poems, and I publish the book, and you are examining my book for the study of Wordsworth poem. So in that case, you are analyzing my textbook. My textbook, it is the intellectual process of myself. So that is cognitive philology. Deciphering of ancient texts of various languages dating as far back as the Bronze Age is still very important part of language. So in the case of philology, so in precise, we can say that in philology, they use both the ancient as well as the recent textbooks. Modern philology in the Western countries gives much impetuous research in Greek and Roman literature, history, society, religion, and philosophy. They cover all these areas. So this is what happening in the field of philology. So philology and linguistics both are synonymous with each other. The next term which is given here is stylistics. The stylistics. Style, what is style? The word style from the perspective of literature is used to denote the manner of writing, speaking, and for performing in a superior quality. This is the style of this author. Style means the way in which the writer writes, or the orator speaks, or the actor performs in a superior quality. Otherwise, we can say that stylistics is a modern version of rhetoric. Don't you know the meaning of the word rhetoric? The art of presentation, the art of writing. So, the art of presenting, either in the form of writing, speaking, acting, etc., that is stylistics. Ancient Greek and Roman philosophers gave much importance to the style. Not only the modern writers, the ancient Greek and Roman writers. You might be familiar with these writers: Aristotle, Horace, Cicero, in criticism paper. So they consider style as an ornament of thought. You might have studied Horace and his five principles. So it is believed that the style of an author it reflects the author's personality. The way in which we speak, we judge that person. Suppose there comes a person that is a stranger, and we interact with that person. Within seconds, we will judge him by his speak, by the language which he used, through his style. So, a person who uses vulgar expressions in speaking or writing is regarded as uncouth. And style is classified under various heads. Cicero, he classified the style of a writer into various heads. One is high, that is grand. He termed it as grand, mean, and plain. This is how Cicero, the ancient philosopher, classified the style. In the modern period, north of Fry, he differentiated between demotic and hieratic, that is the language of everyday speech and language, the literary language, both are different. Roman Jakobson, the Russian formalist, you might be you might remember that term formalist. I told you this is one of the movement happened in Russia. There the critics they gave importance to the text and its form to evaluate a textbook, not the author and the biographical details of that author. So they gave importance to the form of literature. In their opinion, the style is the form of literature. When we comes to the structuralist, they gave importance to the linguistic structure. So this is how it goes on with the passage of time, with the arrival of new theories and new developments in the field of literature. The style has varied. The style has varied, but the concept style it exists. Okay, this is what is happening. So this is regarding stylistics. M.H. Abrahams makes a distinction between two modes of stylistics: formal stylistics and stylistics of literary language. Formal stylistic, according to him, is a narrow mode using traditional way. Style is identified by distinguishing between content and text. In literature, it is not enough that the message be carried. How it conveyed forms a big part. So, in his opinion, there is a connection between the content and the text. You are given a textbook for analysis, and it will have a content. So he said that the style means how the author has presented that content in that textbook. Not the content, the way of presentation that matters. Some movies, after watching some movies, you will say that okay, that character, that role was good, but the actor's performance was too bore. Suppose it was acted by some other actors like Mohanlal or Mammootty, that will be better because the way of presentation of that actor was not attractive. The content was good, the presentation was too bored. So, in his opinion, the stylistics or style means the way of presentation of the content in a textbook. I hope you have understood what I have explained so far. So, with this, I'm winding up today's lecture. Thank you for listening me patiently. Thank you.